Hey there, welcome back. Hope you all are doing well. My name is Dr. Delon Canterbury, the founder of Geriatrics and the Deprescribing Accelerator, coming right back at you with another episode of the Red Pill versus the Blue Pill, sponsored, of course, by Geriatrics. I hope you all are doing amazing. Today, we'll go over some of the common myths I have seen or heard from some of our Deprescribing Accelerator students, along with other businesses, and frankly, sometimes even patients when it comes to monetizing deprescribing or learning how this can significantly change the course of one's life. So yeah, we'll talk about some of them. In fact, there's some myths even I had to face and address myself in getting into this space and maneuvering the initial landscape of a frankly whole new business model. So we'll talk about that. We'll dive into that. Some of the things I've had my coaching students learn or overcome. And now they see, oh, wow, there's a whole nother world to this. And boom, you're prospering. So I hope you all are doing well. Thanks for always tuning in. Again, this is intended for people who are looking to learn about not only advocating for less is more when it comes to our older adults, but who have a deep rooted passion for our older adults and for improving the quality of life in our older adults by the way of deprescribing. And I say it now, I say it again, deprescribing is not just a med review. There's so much more that encompasses what deprescribing means to me. There is building trust. There is having a relationship. There is empathy. There is understanding what matters most to your patient, to your client. Is it in alignment with what we see as opportunities to deprescribe? Hey, Janon, thanks for coming on board. It's always good to see you. Thanks for the support. And more importantly, when it comes to the monetizing part, it's really not about the money. It's how are we serving people over selling something. It's really about serving, and that's what we all do as health professionals anyway. But more importantly, hey, we have to get it out of our head that there isn't a market of people. Thank you, Matt. Hope you're doing well. Appreciate the love, man. We have to get a bit of mindset of thinking that, especially as pharmacists, right? Especially when people come to our program, that there isn't a base of people that would pay for the expertise we have to offer, especially when our expertise leads to life-changing results, right? So we have to get out of that and realize people will pay what they're going to pay. And those people who pay are your people, and those who aren't, maybe just aren't your people now, but they might be later. So don't think that, especially in this confusing, convoluted health system, that there aren't people out there. And that's why providers especially, are leaving the health system and doing their own thing or finding other models to get creative with. So why not include deprescribing as another high ticket, niche, awesome service that, again, the people want, the healthcare system wants, families want it. My granny wants it. All of our loved ones want it. Nobody's waking up wanting to take 15 pills a day. No one enjoys that. So why not think that this could be a service brought on by a palliative care group or an assisted living facility or an adult daycare center, or an add-on service to a physical therapist helping someone improve their gait and strength and core training. I mean, to me, it can be embedded into almost any facet of not just aging, but of healthcare, period. And a lot of it starts with just having a conversation. And that's I guess leads to the first myth, is we all assume it has to start with a clinical provider. So that's myth number one is, and of course we're talking about monetizing deprescribing, sure, but people don't realize that just talking about this not only fosters hope, it also makes people aware of a problem they probably didn't realize they had, or didn't realize that there was a solution that I, as a deprescribing specialist, can offer a service for, and thus sell, and of course, lead to profit. So one, talking about the problem, or at least making people aware that there's a way out of taking all this stuff, is probably the first myth that needs to be addressed, is that there's no way I can sell something like this. So that's the number one thing I hear from people who start our program, and then when they go through and realize, oh, there's a market of all types of awesome folks who will happily pay top dollar, and not even top, medium, whatever price you want to put on it. It's really not about the price. It's all about the value. And generally, if you're in aging, you're seeing these people all day. It's either your loved one, it's either your patient, your client, your resident. You're seeing someone who is literally juggling all this stuff. They're juggling 20 supplements. They're juggling 8 prescriptions, and they're still trying to chase the dragon with their health conditions. Now, I love it when I see people on 3 or 4 meds and they got no other issues and they're just good. I'm like, I'm not touching that. Like, perfect. That's what we want. We want you to be healthy all around. But how come we know for a fact, it's rhetorical, be facetious, but we know when people's med lists are 3 pages long, they tend to still have more issues. There's still risk of falls. There's still risk of anything you want to name under the sun. So I would say the first myth is, first of all, not believing that you can monetize this high niche, high touch, high value service. Okay. And of course, again, we're not here to monetize, but today we're talking about that. We're talking about the business side of what deprescribing entails, and the multiple iterations you can make from it. Like, I mean, to me, this is going to integrative, this is going to functional, this is going to patient-centered lifestyle medicine. All of these, to me, are the same spectrum of addressing deprescribing. So I use deprescribing a bit broadly. I don't use it as just, here's my ways to stop this. And med optimization, if you want to get fancy and add some French to it, people don't know what that means. So I say deprescribing. Okay, there's my background on that. But we got to get over the thought process, especially as clinicians, that this is something that, can't be sold. And yes, this kind of ties into the second myth is, well, doesn't my insurance cover that? You're going to get this all the time. I mean, I still get it in practice. It's never going to go away. We expect our insurance to pay for everything. And I mean, of course, we're already paying an arm and a leg just to have insurance, to barely use it and have it deny half the stuff we need. But hey, if you got some good insurance, we kind of expect that this would be covered. And in some instances, it can be. But it would not be the exact same thing as what some of us do, which is that high touch, ongoing basis relationship that we have that's built on that empathy. All right. I'm not calling someone up once, doing a one-time consult, and then saying goodbye and billing. It has to be chronic care management or some other consistent billable service, which I would give my shout outs to Thea Blystone, who understands that world much more than me. But in some instances, it can. But for the level of what we're doing, at least in our work and my work, I didn't see the route for me to bill that. So people will ask that. They're going to wonder if this can be covered. In some instances, maybe. I would say, depending on where you are, sure. But for what we do, we're working with people over months of time. We're working with people in a way that's, again, doing care coordination. You see, yes, there is an initial consult where we look at the meds, but is this a consult where I'm calling up physical therapists, occupational therapists? Is there a billable format for me to, call up massage therapists, Reiki healers, work with care managers, figure out things with an elder care attorney, see if there's any harm done from a health system. There's a lot of other facets that come to addressing what matters most to someone. And that can change throughout the time of your relationship with someone. So what we're charging for is the value that we're providing across all the segments of the healthcare journey. Sometimes it's peace of mind. Sometimes it's just checking in to make sure I've got the right understanding of how do I approach this. Sometimes, some days I'm looking up how to figure out the benefits for someone who's a vet and was exposed to burn pits. There are different levels that I feel we as clinicians, and I'm not trying to play social worker, but I'm trying to emphasize that people want someone they trust. People want a listening ear, and they want people who think critically and can solve problems. And when you can solve a problem, you can command any price for that, you see? So again, people will initially give the pushback on, is this something covered? For the way I provide this service, it's not. We are a cash-based service. Can it be? You can. There are models for that. That's the model, again, I did not choose. But they're different models, so there's no wrong way to do that. But I feel for what I aim to do and what the variance is of what I'm doing, from at least delegating to other people on the team or contracting out, it takes a lot more than just that med review. And I want to ensure that that's the other piece of the service that I feel I may not highlight as much, because I kind of throw everything under Deprescribing in a way. But it's care coordination, really. It's patient-centered, personalized care coordination, along with, of course, pharmacogenomics, which I love talking about, and again, tying into how are we solving those problems. And pharmacists, especially frankly any healthcare professional, can solve problems. It can solve problems all day. There's always a new problem, and so guess what? People will pay for that. People want to pay for that. Is everyone going to pay for that? No. But there's a significant enough market to where you can absolutely have a viable concierge cash-based business model doing that. All right. So I want to address that myth about the insurance elephant in the room. You're gonna always get that. People, again, have to be educated on this. This is a fairly new space, to be fair. I feel the world of deprescribing has been around. However, it hasn't been as highlighted and emphasized in the light we're seeing today, because I think people are just fed up with these drug prices. They're fed up with another pill. And so I think there's a shift amongst the people to do a little bit less and find a more holistic way to heal. And because of that growing need and the aging out of the old mind frame that there's only one way to heal with Western medicine, I think we're going to have more and more people that are culture diverse and open to this field of, well, what is another more natural way, or what is a holistic, patient-centered way to reduce my pill burden, because it already costs a arm and a leg just to get your meds. All right. So that's myth number 2, is kind of that, well, what about my insurance coverage kind of question that comes up. But again, you can still sell this as a service. Another one that comes up is, well, I kind of touched a little bit on it, but it's assuming that only a provider or prescriber can do this. Okay, there's only a prescriber can deprescribe. And in a way, yes, technically, you're going to need provider buy-in to implement the deprescribing piece. So there is, levels to that where you have to address as a part of your service. However, most times, frankly, I wouldn't see a world where most people are on too many meds if this was being done in the health system. But in the health system, prescribers just have a lot of other things to do. And sometimes the meds aren't always number one on the list unless it's brought up as an issue with the patient or the family member or whatever. So usually it's kind of, are you still on this? The medical assistant reviews, they check your list. Are you still taking this? And then that's kind of your med review. Okay. You're going to always need prescriber buy-in. All right. They are already inundated with tons and tons and tons of admin and competing priorities and putting out fires every day, all day, with every person on the back end, with the insurer, with just the system. they want to do more, but there's a system. So again, this makes it difficult sometimes to make this, unless it's embedded into like their care protocol and modules. So I think sometimes when we're coming in as, say, a nurse advocate or even a consultant pharmacist, that this is something you can't do or advocate for, or even monetize the simple thought of having a conversation. I mean, you can literally just give a talk discussing the benefits of this, and that could be a way to, well, get paid, sure, but also to multiply a community-centered approach that leads with the first thing we need, education about the matter. We need to know that there is a problem for people to act on it. And most people don't realize that this is a problem that they can actually find a solution with. So it doesn't have to all start with the prescriber. Now, of course, we're going to want to call them, let them know what the plan is, talk through next steps. That's going to happen as a part of the work. Because you can't just have people stop and stuff. You don't want a lawsuit. Nobody wants that. But you could still provide that high value service and then give people the option on following through with the provider, or in a better situation when you're working for a retirement community or a business that already has them on site. You meet with the provider and then it becomes a care plan, and you already have the buy-in. It's already done. Now it's all right. We've got the trust built, because again, everything's built on trust. And now you can start rolling out whatever recommendations, across the environment that you're in. So it can be done in a team. It doesn't have to, again, be done just from one person. And frankly, I'll share, I have the blessing to teach Duke primary care residents in actually next week. Thanks to Dr. Tia Bayless for inviting me. But we're going to do a whole session, a whole grand rounds on deprescribing and how our future prescribers can become more aware of good prescribing habits that can reduce the need for deprescribing later in life. So at the end of the day, look, spade's a spade. People are not educated on how to implement and even initiate what deprescribing is from the health system. Unless you're a geriatrician, which is all geriatricians do, and I love them for that, or a holistic healer, most people are not trained on this in med school. I wasn't trained on this in pharmacy school, okay? So I'm sure this is not being taught in nursing school, right? Or PT or OT. So across the spectrum of me talking to clinical prescribers, most will say they have not learned this. So that's already barrier number one. There's a lack of education. So there is an education. How can we expect it to be done from the health system's perspective? Unless policy comes in, or there's a new initiative, or your facility's got too many falls. Now you got to hone in on that one or two thing that causes the issue, so you don't get your reimbursement numbers off or your stars ratings off. And that's where we call it quality care, because we're now focused. But hey, we didn't even learn this. We didn't even learn this to begin with. So it's like, to me, it's counterintuitive to put the blame on them, where this, again, is a systemic issue. So that's why it has to be done as a team cultural shift, and it has to be done in an interdisciplinary team effort. And I mean, from social worker to care intake coordinator to the prescriber to the pharmacist filling, everyone has to have a one mind, one sound to bring this into, sustainable fruition. So the myth of thinking it has to start and end with just the provider is just false. There's no, because they're already got other stuff going on. So if you are that voice, that champion, I don't care what your position is. I don't care if you're a nurse. I don't care if you're a med tech. Someone has to be the deprescribing champion on the care team. And that person is accountable for bringing this up, trying to hold people accountable, getting your champions, getting your key stakeholders, getting the people who have the financial buy-in as well from a systemic standpoint, and rinsing and repeating until you're seeing some of those hard numbers go down, whether it's a certain amount of high-risk meds reduced or false risk med reduced or anticholinergic reduced or antipsychotics reduced, whatever the ballpark you want to play. But all of that I just said can indeed be monetized. It can indeed be sold as a service, not just directly to the patient, but it can be sold as a service to another business. It can be sold as a service to another business, okay? Especially in aging. And to me, that's the missing sauce in aging industry is we don't have enough embedded deprescribing specialists in all spectrums of care. So anyway, myth number 3 was touching on providers. The first one was price. I'm trying to make sure I keep all my ducks in a row. That was the second one. I'm already drawing a blank. I've got so many. I just spill off the cuff sometimes, and it just comes together. I think, so people versus provider. I mentioned price. I talked about insurance. That was my second myth, was thinking this is only an insurance-based model where, no, you can have a concierge cash-based model doing this. In fact, many providers do this. People have direct primary care. People have direct concierge nurses. There are different models of this that have been proven to exist. So it doesn't have to be just, just under insurance. So yeah, guess what? You can get paid cash in this clinical model. That's the model we teach and embrace in our Deprescribing accelerator and in my practice. That's the only way we've done it. So yeah, great. What's another myth that this could be sold? When I started this journey, my coach, thanks to Dr. Geriatric, my first coach was to tell me, hey, you gotta tell your story, Delon. And a lot of my story, as you know, comes with my grandmother and seeing, firsthand wrong meds causing harm. And that led me to creating the series. It led me to going live and talking about the problem, building this huge following. Thank you all for showing up, showing love, and supporting. I did not even fathom that I can get paid talking about the problem, right? So initially it was more, I'm just going to tell everybody. So Delon. I went to every caregiver conference I could think of. And one of my clients was on the Alzheimer's Association board, so I would go to their national conference and steering committee meetings and get invited to cool events and end up meeting some awesome people. And I would do the same thing. I would end up talking about the problem, and then it would lead to, hey, Delon, do you want to talk about this at our upcoming thing? And it became pretty common to be invited to speak wherever. And I wasn't even thinking of that as being my revenue stream at the time. So and this is something we teach as well, is, man, sometimes you can go somewhere and make more money than I would make doing my one-on-one consults. And I was like, wow, okay, there's a whole world of people that have a niche and just know how to tell a story, and they speak to it. So that blew my mind. I mean, I was already wowed with, having cameos on the radio and stuff during COVID, and doing COVID updates, and going to local news talking about COVID this or overprescribing that. None of that stuff was paid, right? So it was cool, but it wasn't paid. I wasn't getting money from that, but it was a service. I loved what I was doing. And then I realized, hey, Delon, you can actually teach a CE or give a talk, and we'll actually pay you to come out. And I was like, wait a minute, this was an avenue I wasn't even thinking about. So again, this is going to come down to commanding your expertise and your value that you can bring. But yeah, in my I'd say second and third years, now I would say the third and fourth years, which would have been going into 2023, that was my best year for speaking engagements. I mean, paid speaking engagements. Like it became regular. So it was another, again, just from talking about the problem. So it doesn't have to be necessarily the one-on-ones or one-to-manys. It can also be literally talking about deprescribing, and running that gamut led to the opportunity to do a TED Talk as of November 2023. It was Veterans Day, on the power of deprescribing, which has been banned. And I will happily tell you all about that, as we spent the last year trying to appeal with TEDx to air. So yeah, I guess, I'm doing something right if my TED Talk is banned. So more on that later. But yeah, again, doing these things consistently, working with, Acora, working with, it was a British company. I did a blog and video on creating content. So I made content for people, and we're able to capitalize on that. Again, all from talking about the problem, speaking. So another avenue we teach is how to land paid speaking engagements as a part of our Deprescribing accelerator. So you can monetize that if that's a route you want to go. And paid speakers can do pretty well in just that niche alone. Like if I really wanted to stop the one-on-ones, I could just paid speak and then make that a thing. But I really like one-on-ones. And whatever, I'm scattered. I'm doing different stuff, letting my vulnerabilities come out there. But it is what it is. So I just, again, in starting this, did not realize that could be an avenue. Another thing I didn't realize, that in being in this space, and it helps, of course, being a pharmacist, but I was able to use my voice as a medical expert. And I again, never thought I would be paid to stand up in court or do case reviews on behalf of a family that's looking for malpractice suits or evidence of harm, which can be difficult to prove. But I didn't think I'd be on the stand cross-examined or having people try to poke holes in a person's medical history or even my credentials and looking to see if there's any harm in a med list. So again, another avenue that I didn't think about was related to deprescribing was knowing the material, knowing how to use evidence-based reviews, and then being paid to represent a family or by a law firm to talk about the review. And so, yeah, definitely gotten the emails to like, hey, do you want to be an expert witness, a medical expert witness? So again, another route I never envisioned exploring or being asked to do. Done initial workups on cases, looking for alcohol and benzo and then masking or faking dementia and some dark stuff out here, man. And people really go after people's money when people are close to dying. It's pretty rough, but there's a lot of good. I'm not gonna get into that rabbit hole. There's a lot of good out here, but those cases I have generally tend to be, there's something egregious going on. And I haven't had that many, but if you didn't know, there is a website to get solicited to become an expert. It's called Expert IQ. Check it out. You could be a pharmacist. It could be anybody. If this is something you want to, get reached out for. You just sign up, make a profile, put your credentials, your CV, and you'll have law firms reach out to you if you want to review a case. And of course, the law firm will pay you to do a case review, and pay even further if you're going to be on the stand, testifying with behalf of your client. I don't know legal terms, but whatever. So again, another avenue that you can explore in the world of deprescribing that I did not, again, consider at all. What else? Yeah, this space, this is okay. People in the community want this. Okay. I mean, starting with that fact alone, people will pay for this. People are tired of the status quo with our system. Most people. People just want to be listened to and heard and have peace of mind. And of course, have the problem solved if there's a problem. A lot of the work I do, again, is what I'm doing after the med review or the deprescribing consult. Current case today, right? For instance, and this isn't, and that's the thing. Sometimes we think you need to have all the clinical know-how, where that's not the case. The only thing you need to have is how do you effectively communicate your value. So we have to kind of shift from, I have all the pedigrees and degrees and licenses to do this, where really it's only about how do you convey your impact and your value to the person you're trying to help. So we got to get out of this thinking of like, you got to have the right pedigree to deprescribe or advocate for deprescribing. Okay. We're not here to walk lines and break scopes of practice. Like we're not going down that road. No, we're not doing that. No one's out here trying to play God. Okay. Don't care. We literally are giving people tools to advocate. So current case we have, this was kind of a wild one. This woman had an initial diagnosis of like myoclonus 20, 30 years ago, and was on benzos for, sadly, 20, 30 years ago. Ended up having a stroke at some point. The myoclonus went away, which is awesome. However, she was still on the benzo. So when she came to us, she was on like Oxy 10s 3 times a day, Klonopin 1 3 times a day. No, twice a day. No, it was 3 times a day. And they had recently stopped and switched to twice a day. Okay. She had, what else? She was still in pain from whatever reason, still had multiple NSAIDs, Tylenol, and yes, NSAIDs, which we don't want post-stroke, blood pressure meds, thyroid meds, cholesterol meds, some standard stuff. So it was about 20. It was about 20 on the med list. So So for instance, we were able to get her off the benzo over 4 months, which is great. The initial presenting issue that came for why they came to us was this woman could barely say 3 words. Like the aphasia was through the roof, and it was a lot of it was attributed to the stroke. And so we assume her baseline was just 3 words. No, now she's a whole different person. Now she's fluid. Now she's able to emote. She's awake. She isn't napping for 2 hours every day. She's significantly better. The family is wowed at the progress she's had from us tapering mainly clonazepam and working on some of the other stuff along the way. So pain, now that she's gotten more clarity, we also did a little bit of shaving off the oxy. And now, mind you, again, I'm doing this with the providers, right? I'm not just telling people to stop stuff. Duh, it's not the model. The model is we work with you to navigate this with your family. So that's what we've been doing. So now we have a new issue that came up where she's in a lot of pain, and we've been, slowly tapering the oxy. The family doesn't want to go back up on the oxy. So I actually shot out to another pharmacist to see about some pain management options, because this woman's been on this for 20 plus years, right? So this is clearly chronic pain. There's probably hyperalgesia from years of that drug. And I'm wondering what are some options. So one of my jobs is coordinating with the pain doc on trying a new regimen. So this wouldn't be technically deprescribing. It'd be mainly switching from oxy to maybe a low dose butrans or buprenorphine. Again, this is just giving people an option. So the pain isn't being controlled with her total daily dose of 15 mgs of oxy, and she's been on that forever. And I think butrans can be a little bit overkill in terms of like the potency compared to what she's on daily. But hey, we're going to start her on the lowest dose of buprenorphine as a patch. We're trying to avoid the need for chronic oxy, which is, again, immediate release compared to the buprenorphine, which as a patch, can last for a week and hopefully have more control long term. So she's not popping the oxys. And hopefully, if we can get her on the butrans, and it'll probably be a prior auth, whatever, I know. But yeah, if we can get that and avoid her having to take oxys and chase the dragon for pain management, I'm praying that can resolve this issue. Because unfortunately, the best medicine that seems to work is an NSAID. And she can't, or she shouldn't have an NSAID after having a vascular stroke. So again, the clinical part of this case is just knowing there's something else. It wasn't like a rigorous soap note where, all I'm doing is making a pivot from oral form oxy, and this is, again, a little bit of pharmacist expertise, to a patch. And the caregiver is going through hell because she's in a lot of pain and it's causing quality of life issues for both people, right? So we're healing, in a way, both parties. What I'm emphasizing here is it's not necessarily all the clinical stuff. It's just being able to navigate this and give people some reassurance that I, as your concierge pharmacist, can figure this out with you. And that is what people are paying for. All right. So yeah, I just want to give an example of kind of the day-to-day different varying stuff that can come about. Because ultimately, guys, this is helping caregivers. This is helping the most underserved people in our country. Everyone's a caregiver. If you're not one, you will be one. So again, caregivers got to manage their lives, their kids' lives, all the things that encompass looking after someone who may have an impairment or disability or physical ailment. And it's not easy, and they're trying to work. So again, when you put things in the frame of we're here to help your family live a little bit better and give you some peace of mind, that is again what we monetize, if you want to put it in that way. But it's really how we serve. It's how we build our business, by serving. Okay. And it comes down to the access and care. I just have time to care more about the issue versus me in another environment where I didn't have time to care. And it wasn't really rewarded. So that's why I feel better. That's why I feel happier doing this, because I could watch the impact of making one call immediately. And that is empathy and trust, which can lead to deprescribing, med optimization, sure. But it all comes down to, do I have a trusting relationship with the family? Now that I have a trusting relationship, we can walk through anything and do it together. Even if I may not know the answer at the moment. I may not know all, and I'm not going to know all the answers. Many times I'm calling on people, I'm like, where do I go with this? Is this a speech therapist route, or is this occupational therapist? Do we need an attorney? I don't know this stuff. I just know who to ask. And that is as powerful. All right. So get it out your heads that, and yeah, I use deprescribing broadly, sure. But ultimately it's we're advocates, we're clinical advocates, and that's why our deprescribing accelerator is covered for interprofessional credits. So you can get 15 hours of live CEs taking our program if you are a nurse, if you are a social worker, if you are a pharmacist, if you are a medical doctor, MD, or if you are DO, or if you're a PA or NP. Okay? All clinical providers in that space I mentioned can all qualify for this program, because everyone can be a deprescribing advocate, frankly, at least in my space. And yeah, we have a version of this for clinicians, but we use a lot of the same framework when I go out in the community and teach this to caregivers as well. It's a little more simplified with, is this vital and important for me to live, right? Is this optional? Does every medicine have an indication? When to start this? What's the, are you seeing a benefit? Has it helped? Is it controlling your issues? If it's not controlling your issues, have you had a conversation? Have you talked about it? Just having that dialogue is enough. And I mean, guys, I cannot tell you the amount of patients that have come to me who have listened to a podcast and then reached out, and before we had a chance to meet, they already got 2 or 3 meds stopped just from the podcast. Just from the podcast. Like, I mean, it's good. I mean, I didn't get paid yet. That's fine. I'm here to serve. But it's funny to have that wonderful feeling and blessing, and not just the affirmation of the journey of this, but the person's life was improved without them having to invest anything except the time to listen and learn something new. And that's why in this world, you can always find a way to monetize this high niche, high touch service. So I think I gave like 7 myths. I talked about people and price first. I talked about the insurance versus cash pay myth. I talked about having to have this start with the provider versus the people. And it could be, again, an advocate on your organization. It could be your own pharmacist. It could be your own entity. It could be a business. You just need a champion for it. There's a myth on the avenues of monetizing. Sometimes we get mired as clinicians as, well, it's got to be done in this setting. And it's like, there's a whole world. There's a whole world of stuff. There's a whole world. Whether it's public speaking, whether it's training, whether it's partnering with a nonprofit, whether it's going down the grant world, whether it's being written into a grant with your partners. whether it's teaching at school, if you want to do it that way, whether it's research, whether you want to be a medical expert and go down that rabbit hole, getting paid for your expertise. Again, all around the same subject of Deprescribing. I also addressed the myth of thinking this has to be done, with a certain license or credential. I mean, I'm telling you, I go everywhere. People in the aging space see the same problems. They repeat the same story. And two things happen. They either go to a pharmacist or they go to their doctor if they get so fed up and they finally ask, what can we do to stop? Because I'm tired of seeing this happen. And then it happens for the most part. Or they go to another doctor and then they make it happen, right? And then once that happens, it's like, oh, for the most part, they get better, all right? It's like, it's clockwork. It's the same story. So it's like, you telling me you wouldn't pay for someone to give you that peace of mind of like how to navigate that? Of course you would, especially if you're seeing someone waste away before you. So if you're solving that high touch problem, it's about how are you communicating the impact of that value? And that depends on your audience. If it's a family member, if it's another business, if it's a health system, if it's an insurer or a payer, or if it's for your nonprofit in a community, a greater good. There's so many ways you can position it. So stop thinking that, again, you got to have like this, you got to have the ultimate degree to make this happen, where really a lot of it is educating and advocating and creating a culture shift, frankly, reversing the medication mindset that we've all indoctrinated from decades of marketing and R&D from pharma / whatever ethos that's been fed into us for eons. So yeah, get out of your head. And this is where, in my eyes, the aging industry and even healthcare as a whole is sleeping on the impact of what I believe Deprescribing specialists can bring. And I'm talking specifically to our consultant pharmacists, because you've got one of the best kept secrets in aging, for the most part, stuck in two environments, which is a long-term care pharmacy where you're doing chart reviews for hundreds of people in a month over many facilities, or you got them in an academic setting, teaching it, right, to the future generation of providers. And yet we're not embedding them in policy, or we're not embedding them in oversight of the quality of some of this in some of these institutions. It's like you just contract out someone to do this and you assume it's being done, where in some instances it's merely a CMS checklist of, we hope you take our consideration, and it becomes just lick stamp insane. It's like we have all this amazing power and potential. So why aren't we embedding them into these care models where this can become a focus, and now you can have culture shift and corporation changes and like top-down leadership that has this already ingrained that, hey, Deprescribing ain't so bad. Maybe this can be something we start with and see if the back end or the outcomes go up. And it doesn't have to be moving a mountain. It could literally be, we're going to reduce the amount of laxatives. I mean, start small. Or question how many people are on aspirin that actually need aspirin, right? Like, do you actually need aspirin still? Start small. Like, don't make this, and especially if it's going to lead to one of those metrics of your falls or readmission rates, or, all those HEDIS measures you can name. And of course, importantly, customer satisfaction. If it's hitting those, work your way backwards from those goals, and then make Deprescribing the root. And that's the organizational standpoint. So stop thinking this isn't a service that we all want. We already want it. So let's do it. All right. So thank y'all for tuning in. Again, another episode of the Red Pill versus the Blue Pill. We do this every Thursday. Usually we do it around noon. We shook it up today just to see if, how that would shake. And it seems to be well. We got a lot more comments today. And I thank y'all for tuning in. To the next week. Usually we do it at 12, or maybe we'll do it again at 10. We'll see. So take care. The Deprescribing Pharmacist is out. If you want to be a part of our movement, we are enrolling and interviewing people for the next cohort of the Deprescribing Accelerator. Check out my link in the comments. You can apply. Yes, there is an application. And yes, we will interview to make sure you're the best fit. Hey, Anne, it's always good to hear from you. Anne was another part of our Deprescribing alum. Got much love to her. Check out her work. It's good to see you, Anne. I miss you guys. If you want to have any questions about cannabis, psychedelics, Anne is the one to talk to. She knows her stuff, and she knows consultant pharmacy like the back of her hand. So got a lot of love for you and everyone else who's tuned in. So thank y'all again. Until next time, take care.